All right, thank you, Douglas, and thank you, Ferry Elaine, our resident musician, who you see on the monitor has done several concerts here. Welcome to the Church of Perpetual Life. My name is Neil Vandry. I am your officiator tonight, and it's a pleasure to see you all here tonight. Let me ask, by a show of hands, who is here for the very first time here at the Church of Perpetual Life? 1, 2, 3, 4, about 18. Very good. Glad you are here. Yes, a big hand for the newcomers. Glad you are here. We have a couple of things to go over, and I'd like to let you know that we are having an auction this Saturday. For those of you who don't know what the Rad Fest is, the Revolution Against Aging and Death Festival in San Diego is in August. The second one that ever occurred is coming up, and we're going to be raising funds at that auction here at the church on Saturday at 11 a.m. A little more information on that as it comes up. The next event here at the church will be July 27th, the fourth Thursday in July, just like this is the fourth Thursday here in June. And we'll be doing a movie night on the July 27th. Will be Year Million, a riveting episode from National Geographic's Year Million series. And we'll be watching that on July 27th. That's just before the Rad Fest. So it'll be we won't have a full spread of food, but we'll have some popcorns and a little bit of snacks and a lot of fun and great social time. I'd like to know how you found out about Perpetual Life. How many heard about this service tonight because maybe you got a text message? Did you receive a text message or a phone call from Deborah? Maybe a phone call. Maybe you got an email, received an email. Great. How about Facebook or social media? Great. And maybe you saw it in the newspaper. Dave got it in the paper for us. There was a little clip in there. A couple of you from that. Great. Wonderful. Did I miss something? Maybe a friend told you? You came because of... There we go. All right. You're lucky to have such great friends, eh? That's great. They're watching out for you. The Church of Perpetual Life, we are all about reversing aging, defeating death, finding a way to have an unlimited life. And you'll hear all about that tonight. You'll be hearing about anti-aging technologies. You'll be hearing about being healthy and exercise and the special diets you can do to maintain your current living and other things that have to do with reversing aging and defeating death. I intend to live many hundreds of years with this body. That's my intention, that's my hope, that's my desire, and that's where I hope you'll come to my 300th birthday party. It's going to be a great party. You're all invited to it. Now, before we get the night get going, there's one thing we've got to do, and we've got to hold an election. It's going to be very quick, I hope. And it's a simple thing to do. It's a simple election for the Board of Trustees. And the slate, we had Alex Vidal was the president on the Board of Trustees, and he has stepped down in order to take a directorship here at the church. So he is a new director, officially starting tonight and after the election. And Alex, why don't you stand and say hello to everybody? He's back here. He's hiding out in the back, making sure that everybody who needs to come is here, and I think they are. But so Alex has stepped down as president, and stepping up is Greg Strom. Has Greg made it? I know he had some difficulties, so I don't think he's here. But Greg Strom is on the slate for president. On the slate for vice president is Bill Faloon. On the slate for treasurer secretary is Ben Best. And coming into the Board of Trustees all anew is Richard Daly. Richard is right here. So if those of you who are here, there he is. And also, as an alternate, there's an alternate slot, and an alternate is a member on the board who would move up if someone should have to come off the board. The person who's the alternate would then move into a full board position. An alternate is someone who's on the board, who will be on the board meetings, hear everything, have things to say, be able to talk about different issues and make suggestions, but will not have voting privileges until he would move up to the actual board position. So this is our slate. I think for those of you who are members of the church, I'll simply ask by acclamation, are there any other people here coming from the floor that would like to run for the Board of Trustees? Any other people who would like to run for the Board of Trustees? Last call for the Board of Trustees. Yes, Jeff? For yourself? Great. We have a second alternate spot. Would you be willing to do that? Wonderful. Great. So we have now Jeff Shaw will be coming, and he's been coming since the very beginning nearly. Jeff and Elena, would you like to stand, Jeff? All right. Perfect. So now we have a full slate. We have both alternate positions filled, and I'd like to say all in favor of the slate that we have, say aye. Any opposed, say nay. Did I hear a nay? I didn't. Great. Okay, so then it's a unanimous vote, and there might have been one nay there, but I'm going to go on record as saying I might have heard one. Somebody having fun over on this side of the room. So that concludes our election, and that was a lot faster than that's great. That's the way every election should be, I think. But frankly, it does open the opportunity for people to step forward. And Jeff, I'm glad you did. Thank you for that. So that is done. All right. Now let's see. We've got all of these things handled. I would like to welcome, and we are live streaming now. We live stream all of our services. We're live streaming right from these cameras back here, and they're live streaming to San Francisco, to Chicago, to Moscow, to London, to New York, and Denver. And I hope that all of those folks are watching. Also, I was speaking with someone in New York City today from CBS News, and I won't say her name, but I hope you're watching as I invited you. And we're hoping that they're going to be here in the next month or two doing another documentary here at the Church of Perpetual Life. More news on that as it develops. So I think we're going to get right into it. Let's go ahead. Let me introduce to you a gentleman who's now on the Board of Trustees and who's been coming here. He drives, every time we have a service, he and his wife come from Naples all the way over across Alligator Alley to listen to what we are doing, to interact, to be part of our group, and then they drive right back. So that's a 3-hour round trip, I believe, maybe more. In traffic, it's probably 4 hours. And sometimes you're coming here in traffic, I know, because it can be a parking lot out there on 595 and on 75 and all of the ways that you come. But I'm glad that you're here. I'd like to let you know about a gentleman who's a free thinker with a background in math, chemistry, physics, computer science, and business. He's been fascinated by anti-aging since his mid-teens. And I'd like to bring up now our new member of the Board of Trustees. A big hand for Richard Daly. Rich, come on up. All right.
Thank you. I'd like to address the people in Chicago. I was born in Chicago and at Cook County Hospital, and I only weighed 3 pounds in 1950. So, and in that time span, about 38% of the babies actually survived 28 days. I'm sorry. Is that better? I apologize. That's my fault. I was saying I was born in Chicago, weighed 3 pounds, and only about 38% of the babies in that weight class survived over 28 days. Of those that survived, some were blinded by a new oxygen therapy that caused retinopathy of prematurity. And that was the case for Stevie Wonder. And Dr. Patz was instrumental in solving the problem, but it took him several years to convince the rest of the doctors that he was right. And when he did, though, he reduced the incidence of ROP by 60%. I grew up in South Bend, Indiana, and my father worked for Uniroyal, and he died when his carotid artery burst because he was taking 27 aspirin a day, which were prescribed by his doctor to combat swelling for rheumatic fever. Am I still? Oh yeah, sorry about that. Yep, there we go. It's not switching. There we go. Okay. Maybe I have to point in a certain direction. It doesn't? Okay. Anyway, he was the head of research and development at Uniroyal and invented ABS plastic and flotafoam and helped win World War II and save countless lives. The ABS plastic was used to make lightweight self-sealing fuel tanks, and if they shot bullets through them, the foam would close up and the plane would keep flying, which was a lot different than the metal tanks that were on the other airplanes. And then Doolittle used them in his bombers when he went over to Japan. And then the flotofoam was used in the landing craft to keep them afloat if they were shot at. Okay. In the 1960s, I read an article in one of my father's scientific journals describing Dr. Harmon's research with mice and butylated hydroxytoluene. It's a preservative that they use in packaging for cereals and things like that. It can also be used to stop oils from spoiling. But they put in the diet of mice and increased their lifespan by 40 to 50%. It was then that my hope for indefinite life extension was transformed into a real possibility. Recently, though, BHT has been found to occur naturally in freshwater phytoplankton, which makes it a natural antioxidant. And actually, Dr. Harmon is credited with developing the free radical theory of aging. And some say that he should get a Nobel Prize from it, but I don't know if you get that after you died. He passed away a few years ago. BHT also has another good aspect to it. It attacks lipid-coated viruses like herpes, chickenpox, and cytomegalovirus, and it also may help prevent DNA damage, atherosclerosis, and cancer. When I was going through presbyopia many years later, when I took BHT, my eyesight would improve for a period of time after I took it. So it has a real strong antioxidant effect. My grandmother died and left me $350 in 1979, and my wife and I used it to start a business. As our business grew, we were able to start an anti-aging plan, and it's gotten to be a pretty big plan by now. I really didn't want to work for a big corporation like my father did, but because they made him sign away the rights to his 22 patents, which were arguably worth many millions of dollars. And when he died, they came in, I think a week or two after he died, and gave my mother $2,000 for 2 of his pending patents and all of the papers they wanted out of his home office. The actions of Edward Bernays, who wrote the book Propaganda and promoted female smoking in public by branding cigarettes as feminist torches for freedom, I think that resulted in doctors telling my mother she should smoke for her health. There was one pack of cigarettes that showed 36,000 doctors thought that smoking was good for your health. And she ultimately became a Virginia Slim girl and died of lung cancer in 1992. Next slide. My wife's brush with death. My wife Beth became bedridden for 6 months, and the doctors didn't know what was wrong with her. She had a slight temperature, and they really just could not figure it out. So after 6 months of being extremely ill, I happened to see activated charcoal on the shelf of a health food store. And with my chemistry background, I thought, well, maybe it's toxins, and that would bring out the toxins. And it turned out that was correct. And she gradually got better and is still using activated charcoal whenever she starts to feel the effects of pesticides or, cleaning chemicals or things like that. Our story is in the June 15th issue of the Life Extension magazine under the title Surviving Economic Toxins, and is on the web if you'd like to look at it. One caveat is that charcoal does not only remove toxins, but it can remove medications and nutrients, so you want to be careful about that. One of the next life extension things that I like is CLA, conjugated linoleic acid. It's found in butter and hamburger. And this doctor from get a little carried away. A doctor from the Worcester Institute in Philadelphia reported evidence of CLA targeting atherosclerotic plaque in studies of rabbits. He reported that rabbits getting chow that was 1% CLA had 30% less plaques after 3 months compared to controls. He said, "This stuff is just amazing." I have been taking 2 to 3 grams of CLA daily ever since reading that article, and that article was in the Science News, March 3rd, 2001. I am hopeful that small improvements to our health, like taking CLA and other supplements, will ultimately help us live long enough to live indefinitely. I went to the Immortal Life Convention in Laughlin, Nevada. It was a great time. I met and talked with many people, including Neil Vandery and Saul Kent at the convention. The end result is that I signed up for Neil's emails from the Church of Perpetual Life, and I've been driving from Naples for the monthly meetings ever since. I think the Church of Perpetual Life organization is poised to take advantage of the latest technologies available. I am optimistic about our chances of success. Okay, I'll try and switch it. At home, we have a water filter for our whole house. The contaminants in tap water include such things as aluminum, arsenic, bacteria, cadmium, chloramine, copper, fluoride, lead, mercury, and the list goes on. Even prescription drugs are in our water, solvents, viruses, etc. Contaminants in tap water can put a negative load on the function and repair mechanisms of the body, which may lead to a shorter lifespan. I think some of them can also cause cancer. And then some of the contaminants can enter the body through the skin while you're taking a shower, which I don't know if too many people think about that. Now, there seems to be a big controversy about organic and GMOs, and my take on it is that we need to create a new category of food and call it GSOs. The term genetically modified organisms, or GMOs, is very misleading because it encompasses all genetic modifications when there's actually 2 distinct different methods of modifying genetic information. Organic food has been genetically modified over the centuries by our ancestors through the use of selective breeding. Examples include tomatoes, corn, and cattle. The new genetic scientific manipulation involves gene splicing. Organisms and accuracy in labeling would dictate the product should be labeled GSOs, or gene-spliced organisms. Examples include BT corn. BT corn has been found in the breast milk of women, and I believe it's actually a pesticide. Anyway, these types of combinations can only be created by splicing the genes of one organism into another organism or another species. Excuse me. Then the question is, why do we eat organic food? Since my father died after he was taking 27 aspirin a day that were prescribed by the doctor, and my mother died after being told to smoke for health, I've become very skeptical. I mean, they tell us that a regular food or genetically modified food is okay, and honestly, I'm pretty skeptical. We'd rather be safe than sorry when it comes to our food, and so we eat all organic. If you want to look up some of the information, Anthony Samsel and Stephanie Seneff, she's from MIT, have provided a grist for the mill against gene-spliced organisms and glyphosate in their multitude of papers and speeches. This is all on the web and can be searched. There are graphs that show high correlations between glyphosate and many diseases. They have postulated, and some say verified, a correlation between GMO products and several diseases. One of their most consequential proposals, in my opinion, is that glyphosate can replace glycine in the building blocks of life. Glycine is where proteins bend, and if they don't bend in the right place and they're replaced, the glycine is replaced with glyphosate, then the protein doesn't do its job. And the body has to go ahead and break it down and then try and rebuild it again. Other things we tried to avoid, well, we moved from Indiana to Florida to minimize our exposure to air pollution. And actually we moved from Mount Dora to, after my wife got sick, to California to do the same thing. But then we did move to Naples. But they put in a incinerator by Mount Dora, and that was one of the reasons we moved. And maybe it could have been one of the reasons my wife got sick. I don't know. We drive a bigger vehicle so that if we get in an accident, we will have a better chance of surviving. We avoid the normal things like alcohol, artificial sweeteners. Actually, there's some artificial sweeteners that there are some artificial sweeteners that are combined with nitrates that they use to induce brain cancer in rats when they do experiments. High fructose corn syrup we avoid, fluoride, pesticides, herbicides, vaccines, and estrogen mimics. I believe estrogen mimics are having a large effect on young men or young boys because the soy mimics estrogen, and it has detrimental effects to their maturation. And in my mind, almost everything we do has an impact on how long we live. My wife and I intend to attend Rad Fest 2017 in San Diego. I was particularly interested in Steve Perry's presentation of GDF-11 and its anti-aging properties at the last meeting. The presentation by Peter Nygaard on SCNT, somatic cell nuclear transfer, presented a way for individuals to replace their old cells that have short telomeres with embryonic stem cells that have long telomeres. This could also be done with pluripotent stem cells. And on the lighter note, we enjoyed Suzanne Summers, and we met a lot of very nice people with a common interest in radical life extension. Also, Suzanne Summers is very smart and has written a book on toxic and many books on hormone therapies, and she's quite an amazing individual, and not at all like the girl she played on TV. Peptides of pineal gland and thymus prolong human life. That's quite a bold statement. It's actually an article by Dr. Haviskson that I found 2 years ago. His results are incredible. 20 elderly individuals who took a 10-day course of injections of epitalon and thymolin once a year over a 6-year period of time had a 20% mortality rate. That would mean that 4 people out of the 20 died, I believe. compared with an 81.8% mortality rate for the control group. The control group was 22 people. In any case, going from 81.8% to 20% is a 75% decrease in mortality rate. And I would also like to add that peptides are short chains made up of amino acids. I get to so comfortable with some of these things that I don't explain them like I should. I attended the World Stem Cell Conference in the road here anyway. The first amazing thing I learned at the Stem Cell Conference was that the Hadassah, thank you, that Hadassah was successfully using stem cells to treat multiple sclerosis, ALS, advanced macular degeneration, and other neurological diseases. I also learned that mesenchymal stem cells play an important role in repairing the heart, not by actually contributing their cells to the heart, but by orchestrating the function of other cells. It seems that there are investigative stem cell trials for many diseases, and the sky's the limit because we are made out of stem cells. Yep. I attended the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine thanks to Pat Riley, and I'm glad she suggested that I attend it because there was a session about peptides, something that I've become newly interested in. It was put on by Dr. Seeds, an orthopedic surgeon from Ohio. He works with athletes and had one of his patients, Max, from Dancing with the Stars. How many of you know about Max from Dancing with the Stars? And Max described his treatment with peptides like BPC 157 and hormones. Max said the injuries could have ended his dancing career, and most dancers don't dance more than, about 15 or 20 years. But after treatment, he feels better while dancing than he ever has. His pulled groin muscle and the crush injury of his calf muscle are now virtually undetectable in MRI scans. BP 157 also promotes many other types of healing modalities. There are thousands of peptides in the human body, and the presentation confirmed my thoughts that peptides will be a major key to curing many age-related disorders. One of the main things I became acquainted with was that calcification of the pineal gland and involution of the thymus, which means that it kind of degenerates, are probably the root to many of our aging disorders. Now on to the interesting thing, and that is you can't outlive your telomeres. Telomeres are the end caps on chromosomes that protect your DNA from damage during cell division. Every time a cell divides, they get a little bit shorter. We are conceived with about 15,000 base pairs of telomeres, and we are born with about 10,000. And generally, when we get below about 5,000 base pairs, we're pretty old and we pretty well die. The $5,000 loss between birth and old age correspond to about 60 cell divisions. Lifestyle and genetics impact how many times our cells divide. People that drink burn up their telomeres faster, things like that. Is the cells with the shortest telomeres that would logically precipitate age-related diseases, like cancer and heart disease, when they get to the point that they stop functioning correctly, quit dividing, or die. I had my telomeres checked in 2009 when I started taking TA65, which is a telomerase enzyme activator that is proven to lengthen telomeres. I have taken TA65 on and off for 8 years. I have also measured my telomeres from time to time, but the problem is that the different testing methods, FlowFish and the newer ones, do not correlate well. I believe the length of my telomeres have increased, but more importantly, I am more interested in the lengthening of my short telomeres. So I will take the same life length test that I took this year, next year, and report back to you the details of the results. Now comes one of the things that I just learned, which I think is astonishing, and I call it a telomere alert. It's actually pretty old news in a way, but some of it is new news, be it just from last year. In 2011, NIH, National Institute of Health researchers found that short or dysfunctional telomeres activate the production of progerin, which is associated with age-related cell damage. And here's the key. As the telomeres shorten in a cell, the cells produce more progerin. This appears to be the major feedback loop that controls how long we will naturally live. And unnatural life would be if we extend our telomeres. Progeria and normal cellular aging are linked by progerin. A genetic splicing mechanism triggers both progeria, a premature aging syndrome, and normal cellular aging. Progeria is where children look like they're about 80 years old when they're 10 and die of old age when they're about 13. I believe this study makes a very strong case for telomere lengthening to stave off the progeria cascade. Now the future as I see it is that healthy living is very important, including organic foods, vitamins, and supplements. Telomere lengthening is very important because you can't outlive your telomeres. Progeria control would be a good thing. I think they call it antisense technology, where you can actually cover up the DNA in a cell and it doesn't express that DNA. And that may be a way to control progeria. Peptide therapy, BPC 157, that helped Max, is a gastric peptide, and it's a very stable peptide. It's so strong that you can actually swallow it and it stays intact through your stomach and your gastrointestinal tract. And it will rebuild bone and muscle and tendons, and probably is, I think it's a deficiency in it. It may be the root cause of gastric problems such as sphincter problems. It actually tightens sphincters, and things like irritable bowel syndrome and Crohn's disease. So that's a good way to fix a lot of the things that menace people as they get older. Then there's stem cell therapy. There's mesenchymal stem cells. There's a lot of different kinds of stem cells, but I think it's a really up-and-coming technology. Then there's gene manipulation with CRISPR. They can go in and they can change a few letters in the genome in every cell in your body, which is absolutely incredible. One of the girls, I shouldn't say one of the girls, but one of the individuals that has a company that can do that, changed her genes so that she would produce more telomeres or telomerase to get more telomeres. So we'll see where that ends up. She did that about a year ago, and she was at the Rad Fest. So that was very interesting. Then I think that at some point we may have synthetic DNA or synthetic mitochondria to keep us going. And, you know, the technology, just like our patron saint, I guess, you know, God put these technologies here for us to use. And I feel like, well, I'll get to that in a minute, unless it was here. Anyway, I feel like things like heart disease, well, got off script a little bit. My final thoughts are that I would like to live to 150 and beyond. I'm enjoying life, and I would like to see the future. Additionally, I would like to leave this world a little better off than when I got here. Anti-aging technology is somewhat outside of the mainstream, just like antibiotics and heart surgery were when they began. But I think they will become the new normal as people realize that age reversal is real and actually possible. I think individuals have an unalienable right to choose, and that would include the right to choose treatment protocols when they get sick. In fact, I read something recently that a Neanderthal with joint issues, you know, they're no longer around, but they did an autopsy on him, and he had joint issues. But interestingly, he had willow bark in his stomach, so he was self-medicating way back then. So why shouldn't we have the right to do that? God bless America.
All right, Richard. Thank you, Richard.
Thanks, Neil.
Two, three questions.
Sure.
All right, on this microphone, please. So we have time for 2 or 3 questions. Any questions for Richard on his amazing presentation? Thank you for all the research you put into that. I know how much work that was. Questions? We have time for 2 or 3. Over here first to Dave.
How many supplements do you take a day, and what are they? Oh, he's smiling. I can see.
Good question.
It's a good question, but one that I hate to answer because it's excessive. So, you know, the only person I probably know that takes more supplements than me is probably Ray Kurzweil. So that'll tell you something.
Okay, thank you. Here's one from Jeff.
The neuropeptide that you mentioned, what is it, BP 165 or something?
It's a gastric peptide. It's BPC 157.
How can you get it? How can you obtain it?
Well,
Like
you
that?
can go to Dr. Seeds. It's available as a experimental peptide if you want to experiment on rats or mice. It's something that I guess bodybuilders actually use it. So I don't exactly know where they get it or anything like that. But
We have time for just one more question here.
I don't know if this is okay to ask, but your age, is that possible?
I'm 80. No, I'm just kidding. I'm 66. Yeah. Yeah. So.
Rich, we have. That was a quick question. I have one back.
I'm seeing online on peptideswarehouse.com that the BPC 157 is for sale. I'm just wondering if you've heard of this company.
I have one thing I might say. When I went to the Peptides conference, Dr. Seeds said that he got peptides from Peptide Sciences. So, you know, I don't know much about the different companies or anything like that, and have no recommendations, but I thought I'd throw that in for you. Thank you very much.
I appreciate that question on what supplements you take. And of course, each person has a different body and should take different supplements, really. And I suspect Richard is accurate with his statement that he might take just a few under what Ray Kurzweil takes, or for that matter, Mr. Faloon. But the fact is, I've been to Richard's condominium over there, his home in Naples, and there's a whole bunch. He has special cabinets just for all of the supplements and vitamins that he's taking. And, you know, it's so important. I mean, to me, I think it's such an important thing to do. Yes, Richard? We'll have to add that somehow. The body is like a beaker. Say it again, and I'll repeat it. Our body is like a beaker. And we need to put the correct chemicals in to drive the reactions. Thank you, Richard. A couple of things came up. Richard mentioned Suzanne Summers out at the Rad Fest, and of course she's written multiple books. She's like a genius. You see her in the Three's Company show, Suzanne Summers, and she's this bumbling idiot, funny girl. But wow, is she smart. She's right on it. And we have many of her books in our library. I'd like to bring out the fact that at the Outer Sanctuary, we have the library here at the church. You're welcome to check out a book and bring it back next month and read it. And there's some great stuff there by Suzanne Summers. Also, by the same token, just outside the sanctuary is the cryonics table. I failed to mention that we have a table on cryonics. If you're curious about cryonics, there's some great information over there about that. And so there we are. Now coming up, another speaker. We're going to get moving on this. I'd like to introduce to you a gentleman that the first time I met Mike, he came to the church because we needed some help with the roof. We had a little leak going on, so I made a few phone calls, and a gentleman from Global Roofing came over, and we had a conversation. At the end of the conversation, I don't think we talked more than 2 minutes about the roof. Maybe about a half hour we talked about health and fitness and longevity, and I was so impressed by his knowledge that I said, man, you got to get over here to one of our events, one of our services. Not something I typically tell many of the tradespeople who come here to work on the building, but he was definitely one of us. And after I got to know him more, I want to thank Larry for reminding me of the great amount of knowledge that he has on exercise and on diet and other things that have to do with fitness. Turned out that he had, in New York City at one time, a gymnasium. He had a very successful gymnasium where people came, famous people, very wealthy people would come to him and hire him to help them to become healthier, to help them to lose weight or whatever it was. And he would go into their homes and take away all the terrible food that they're not supposed to eat. He'd just clear them out and get them started on the right foods, on the right diets. And, you know, he would fire his clients more often than not, simply because they weren't following the correct instructions. It wasn't about the money for Mike. It wasn't about this. It was all about success. And, you know, he's a living testament to his own success. And I'd like to bring up a gentleman who really has, I can't mention the many names of the famous people that he's worked with because we don't have their permission to do it. We're live streaming. But if he wants to, that's fine. But I think we should bring up now the gentleman who's going to come up next is Michael Rood, fitness trainer, sought after by many of the rich and famous in New York City and around the world. Let's give a rousing applause here to our very good friend, Mr. Michael Rood.
Good evening. It's a pleasure being here. It's an honor to be a speaker tonight. And I want to thank the organizers first. I want to thank Bill Faloon. I want to thank Neil for inviting me here tonight. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I am actually from Eastern Europe, born and raised in Romania. And how did I get here? I escaped from the communist Romania back in 1981. I actually ran illegally over the border, and I managed to get to Yugoslavia, which is, former Yugoslavia. I was in jail for 20 plus days for crossing the border illegally. And after 20 days, I had no idea if they were going to return me back to Romania or let me go. And after 20 days, finishing the jail sentence, they took me to another jail in Peptides, which is Belgrade. And they put me another 20 days in jail. So to make a long story short, I was one of the luckiest people to let me go, and I end up in Austria. They helped me. They said, well, you can go. So they let me go. Actually, the police took us by car from Belgrade, Yugoslavia, to the border of Austria. And then from there, they told us, they say, you know what? You are free now. You can go across the border. Make sure not all of you go in the same direction. Make sure 3 or 4 of you go this way, 3 or 4 go this way. Don't ever tell the Austrians that we let you cross the border, which is a true story. And then, as I was in Austrian refugee camp, I found out that, that Yugoslavia gets paid for each and every person that allows to go over to the Western world, and gets paid money for each person that sends back to Romania. So they were human trafficking, in other words. So I was there for 6-7 months in Austria, refugee camp. From there, they tried to convince me to stay there, to live there, to practice sports there. My thing was, I was very athletic from a young age. And I said, no, I'm not staying here. I wanted to go to the United States. And they say, what's in the United States? What's there? I said, look, I watch American movies. I want to go there. What do I do? And I moved to New York. Of course, they gave me a visa. When I got to the States, they actually gave me a temporary green card, so I have the right to work. And after a year, they gave me permanent green card. So I came here legally, but, so here I am. And then living in New York, you have to make a living. If you do full-time sports, you don't get paid. So you got to work. So I had to take, like construction, personal training, work in the restaurants to make ends meet so I can save enough money to open my own business. And to make a long story short, in a couple of years, I own a physical fitness studio that's been around for about 10 years. And we are the only physical fitness that overcharge, like I would say about 50% compared to other gyms. But we are unique. What we did was we prove 100% results. We're not just personal trainer. We count every repetition. We put you on a diet. We actually make you sign like a waiver that if you're not following our, what do you call that, in exercise routines and all that, we have the right to let you go, even if you pay. So they say, well, isn't that crazy? I mean, don't you want to make money? I say, yeah, I want to make money, but I also want to be successful too, And most of the people that go to the gyms today, a year, 2 years later, they are the same weight or fatter. They gain weight instead of losing weight. Why is that? Because they are not trained to actually teach people how to detox the body, which is a key. Guys, when you go to the gym, and if you have, let's say if you're 20, 30, 40 pounds overweight, they put you on a treadmill to run. That's not how you do it. That's abuse to the body when you're overweight. So what I taught people, detox the body first. And they say, yeah, but it's hard, and this and that. I said, but it's harder when you get sick, isn't it? So the key is, the reason why people are getting fatter and fatter, nobody teaches them how to detox, which is a key. Detoxing is the mother of all diets. We hear people talk about foods, talk about diet, nutrition, all that. But we're toxic. We're so toxic that we can't even think straight. We can't function normally. We're not, we're just not functioning at maximum capacity, and we're suffering. What will disease come from? from toxins. So we did actually tell people that the only way to be the best you can be, you have to remove toxins, internal toxins, external toxins. Stop using perfumes, which is not a toxic. People use perfumes, and later on I was right that perfumes and deodorants causes breast cancer in women. That's another toxin that nobody talks about it. I'm sorry to say that, but that's the reality. All the chemicals that we put in our body have negative long-term side effects. And, you know, we have fast food every corner we go by. There's fast food everywhere, pizza, McDonald's, Burger King. And people get temptation. They tempt to eat junk food. And they say, how you stay so disciplined? They ask me, how you? I say, it's easy. They say, what do you mean it's easy? Because you have junk food everywhere. I said, if you love yourself, I guarantee you, you're going to change your diet. You're going to change your nutrition because it starts how you feel. Most of the people, they don't know who they are. They don't know the purpose of their life. They don't know where they're going. They have no sense of direction in life. That's the problem. So I used to advise them. I said, look, take a half an hour break every day and just sit in the dark, put some quiet, beautiful music, and think of you were on that vacation a couple of years ago in Hawaii. Think of that for a while. And meditate half an hour a day. They say, what is that going to do for me? I said, what's that going to do for you? I said, you'll find out what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are. And they said, well, and so what? I said, the reason why you don't take care of your health because you allow the bad habits that you learn over your lifetime taken over, and you know they're not healthy, but you're still doing it because your mind tells you unhealthy food like a pizza, McDonald's, and all that, it's not good for you, but you're still doing it. And they say, okay, so, and then what? I said, if you do meditation, you find out what your weaknesses are, what bothers you in life, and then you work on that. Think of that bettering yourself. Then you have balance. When you have balance in life, you conquer the world. And I see people every single day, they're very successful. They're lawyers, doctors. I have many friends of mine, they're doctors, and they have health problems more than I do. And they say, Mike, how you do this? I say, it's easy. I say, before I put something in my mouth, I think I'm the liver. I think I'm an organ for a while. Would I like that alcohol to go in the liver? No. Think you're the heart for a second. Think. Just put yourself in that position and say, you're the heart. Would you like something like cholesterol to clog you up? No. So think unique. You don't want to, don't read books about everybody else. We're all different. We're all unique in a way, one another. But think of what can that do for you before you put it in your mouth. And I said, don't use your body as a garbage bag. That's what you've been doing all your life. And then you expect doctors to heal you. It's not going to happen. And we're doing every single day. We eat bad. We don't sleep enough. We don't detox. We do the same day over, eat bad, don't sleep enough, and don't detox. And we expect different results. It's not happening, guys. Not happening. So, and food supposed to be a medicine. But unfortunately, here in the States, everything we eat has GMOs, pesticides, antibiotics, and then we get clogged with those nasty things in our body, and we expect to be healthy. No one in the world can be healthy. We are constantly eating all these bad, toxic foods, which is not edible. They're not edible. I wouldn't eat those things. And I realized how bad the food was here in the States when I went back to Europe and I ate real, pure, organic food grown in my garden, my family garden. And I noticed that when I was back in New York, my mom used to say, you don't eat egg yolks there, you don't drink milk, how do you guys live there? And I just want to make my mom feel good. I said, Mommy, it's okay, let me have a glass of milk. She woke up in the morning, 5:30 in the morning, and she milked the cow. We live on the farm, and she gave me some milk. So I said, man, let me see what happened. Now I drink this milk. Am I going to blow? Am I going to, like, my stomach's going to make noises like it happens in New York? I drank a glass of milk. Nothing happened to me. I said, wow, that's a miracle. And then next morning, I drank half a liter of milk. Nothing happened. Raw milk from the cow. Nothing happened to me. So then I was saying to myself, oh my God, everything I learned in the United States is wrong. There's nothing wrong with the milk. See, nothing. I used to drink 1 liter every morning, raw milk. Nothing happened to my stomach. I didn't get bloating. I didn't get discomfort in the stomach like I used to get in New York. And then I realized that the stuff they put into milk here, that's what really, really, it's bad for us. It's very bad for us. So what you have to do is you have to do a detox minimum, I would say twice a year, if not 3 times a year, to detoxify your liver. Liver is the biggest, the most toxic organ in the body. Has 500 to 600 functions. Yeah. Liver, gallbladder, that's very important to detox it. And how you do that? You fast, if you can, or juicing, or teas, or master cleans, whatever you want to call that, just do it. You're going to save yourself a lot of money, and you're going to save your life by doing that. Toxins are the biggest problem we have in the United States here. I mean, it's huge. Everyone that I know, I put them into a detox program, they're happy and healthy now. Because they are inside, they are nice, I mean, they look okay, but they're dead inside. And they say, Mike, ever since I did detoxing, I feel better, I have more energy. And I say, you know what, you're going to be smarter because of that. They start laughing. I say, it's true. When you're healthy, you're happy. When you're happy, you become successful at everything in life. As a father, as a son, as a business person, you transform that into happiness. We are born to be happy. We're not born to be sad, upset, and overweight, and take medication. I mean, when I was traveling, and I ate 3-4 times a day, twice as much as I ate in the States, and I lost weight. I said, oh my God. I said, the bread is not good. The milk is not good. It's not good. But I ate everything there, and it didn't bother me. So it's the stuff that here, the stuff they put in the food, that would really, really, like, it causes havoc in your system. And another thing I want to mention, in Japan, for example, they believe in detoxing with water, not just regular water, alkaline water. And here in the States, we don't talk about alkaline. We don't talk about alkaline diet. We don't talk about that much because it's not money to be made, I guess. That's what I think. It's my opinion. And at the University of Japan, they found out all allergies are cured with alkaline water. How do we get allergies? Allergies are from acidic foods. What is that? Junk food, meats, and sugars. That's what causes that. So everything we put in our mouth has long-term side effects for the rest of our lives. And they even have proof they did studies, and they say that if you remove acidity from your diet, you make your body more alkalized, you basically can reduce mortality by 15%. So alkaline foods, Middle Eastern foods, like olives and good fats and all that, that will save your life, believe it or not. And I noticed that when I eat junk food once in a while I have pizza. I'm not going to lie. I'm not that. I have pizza once in a while, but then I go home, I drink a very, very strong tea. So I make sure that pizza doesn't stay in my body for the next 24 to 48 hours. Yeah. So we have to make good choices, make habits, make massive habits to change your life. Because basically what we are is, we are a collection of habits. What we learn over the years, everything we learn basically about diet is wrong, guys. It's wrong. They say that low-fat diet is bad for you. It's a lie. The biggest lie, biggest misconception ever. Low-fat diet is not healthy for you. It's the opposite. So, and then now they have studies done, and they say that was the biggest myth to have a low-fat diet. Countries that ate like a lot of coconut, a lot of fats, for thousands of years, like tropical countries, they never had heart problems. You know? So it proves that those people, they eat fat foods and they're still healthy. And they don't have heart issues and all that. So everything we learn here, it's wrong. They say low sodium. Sodium is good for you if it's iodine. It's good for thyroid gland. It makes your immune system better. Give you more energy when you're in the gym. So we basically completely misguide when it comes to diet. That's what the problem is. So if you want results, guys, and if you want to have more energy, I highly recommend do a detox, deep cleansing. I don't care what you want to use, teas, waters, and all that, and have an alkaline diet afterwards. I guarantee you, your life is going to change. I guarantee you that. It costs you no money. It costs you, you know. Go ahead. 3. Some people do 3 days. Some people do 5. Some people do 7.
A lot of people want to ask questions. I think we're going to go into a little bit of questions right now,
Okay.
if we may.
Okay.
So I'd like to have it on the microphone so that we can record it. There are people listening in. Let's go to here. Don?
All right, yeah, I have 5 questions, but I want to ask you 2. I have a master's degree in science, I have a degree in health and nutrition, I have a degree in physical education, and I was a teacher in Miami-Dade County for 31 years. Thank God I'm retired now, so I don't have to put up with that stuff anymore. But I have 2 questions I wanted to ask you. You said about detoxing 2 or 3 times a year?
A year, that's correct.
I was always told and always learned you should do it once a month, is what I was
Well, it's
told.
even better if you can do that.
Yeah.
Great. Oh, that's amazing. If you can do that, I mean, it's very hard for people to stop from their regular junkie diet and
Right.
they go on detox. It's very hard, but if you can do it, more power to you. That's great. That's amazing.
Okay, and I went to a seminar. It's called Elite Health. I don't know if anybody ever heard of that place.
Say it again?
Elite Health. It's a place where you go and they do seminars and stuff. And they were telling us that there was 5 things in your life that you can do to help you stay healthy and live longer. And I told the lady number 6, and she said, yeah, I'm going to add that too.
Mm-hmm.
Nutrition, exercise, meditation, which you mentioned. Now I'm going blank.
Sex.
Yeah, well, I didn't say sex. They should have. Okay, I'm trying to think of the other. There was 2 other ones, and I said sleep.
Okay.
Sleeping was important, and she didn't have that in her routine, and she says, I'm going to add that. Oh, DNA was another one, and there was one more, and I can't remember it. But she said those 5 things plus sleep is the most important thing you can do to help yourself live longer and have a healthier life. So I just wanted to ask you how you felt about that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I say 4 things, I think. One is exercise, diet, sleep, and the most important one is how fast your body eliminates toxins. That's a key. I will highly encourage you to read the book, Mucusless Diet. It was written 100 years ago, and you're going to learn a lot from that book. That guy, he stopped eating for 30 days. He was fasting 30 days consecutive. He competed in a bicycle ride. He won the competition without eating for 30 days. Seriously, read that book. It's Mucusless Diet. It was written by a German guy. Diet.
Yes, mucusless diet. Here's another question from Drew.
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
You talked about alkaline water. Can you talk a little bit about filtered water or seltzer water, like carbonated water, if that's not good for you or if it is?
I am not a big fan of carbonated water. I don't know why, just my stomach doesn't agree with it. But anytime I have alkaline water, I feel like $1 trillion. Not like $1 million, like $1 trillion. It does something, detoxes your body. And there's evidence to show that that works, really works. So I very rare, I have Perrier once in a while, I have a Pellegrino from time to time, and it doesn't feel the same. Distilled water sometimes, yeah. Yeah, distilled water from time to time, yeah, I have that.
That book, by the way, Mucusless Diet by Arnold Ehret,
Albert, yeah.
E-H-R-E-T.
Correct.
Thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
for mentioning that. Questions? There's one coming. All right.
Yes, with regard to the diet, I mean, how do you define it that? In other words, you stop eating for like 24 hours, 48 hours? How does that work?
You mean as a detox?
The detox, yeah. Detox.
Some people stop eating for 7 days, all they have liquids. Juicing or water with lemon, whatever works for you. You know, I mean, you can do juicing, but watch the sugar. Remember, sugar, even fruits they're high in sugar. That's a no-no. So eliminate fruits, eliminate junk food, and GMOs, and you'll be okay.
Don remembered.
Stress. Stress was the last thing I was mentioning.
Beth has
Yeah,
a question.
What do you think about fasting for 14 or 15 hours on a daily basis?
I'm sorry, what's the question?
What about fasting on a daily basis for 14 or 15 hours? That's what I eat 2 meals a day.
That's great. If it works for you, more power to you. Do it. Whatever works for you. There's science behind that. People that do fast, they outlive people who overeat. And if you feel good in that fasting, do it.
Good.
Okay.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Michael Rood.
Thank you.
All
Appreciate
right.
it. Thanks for having me here.
job.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Oh, Michael, here. This one. Yes. Keep in mind, after the service tonight, you'll have the opportunity to speak with directly, personally, downstairs, Michael Rood and Richard Daly, and also our next speaker. But before we go there, I wanted to point out that, and also want to thank someone who is our social media coordinator, the social queen of South Florida. She has social chats. Let's give a big hand for Tanya. Tanya Schultz, thank you for all you're doing here, connecting us all through all the medias that you do. And also point out, my wife has made it today. Paula, thanks for being here too. Hey. All right. Now, I wanted to mention that all of the things that Michael was speaking about, what Richard was talking about, sometimes we have speakers that have opposing views, different ideas of how the diet should be or what the exercise regimen should be. The thing that brings us all together is that we want to live healthy for a long, long time. Not 100 years, but hundreds of years. That's what we want. So the reality is, yes, and the reality is, so we are members of maybe we are Jewish, or maybe we're Christian, or maybe we're atheist, or maybe we're Buddhist, or whatever it may be. The thing that is unifying us is that we want to defy death. We want to reverse aging. We want this, and we're going to find this. This is some amazing things have happened here in just the past 12 months. It's remarkable. As I mentioned, we're going to be watching next month one of the episodes from Year Million on the National Geographic Channel. And this is a phenomenal series that's coming up. If you have a chance to watch it, by all means do. But come also next month. It's going to be great fun, and we're going to have some interesting things. Some of you are subscribing to the paleo diet. Others are vegan. Some are meat eaters. Some are seafood eaters. There are many different things that people try. And it's important to come here to talk about the different ideas that you have and to listen to alternate options and learn. This is what we're doing here, and it's great stuff. Our next speaker this evening is the founder of the Church of Perpetual Life. I've introduced him a few times. I'm running out of different ways to introduce Mr. Faloon. Let's give him a big hand. Mr. Bill Faloon. Use this one?
Okay, group, what I'm going to do is a little preview of what I'm going to put on at the Revolution Against Aging and Death Conference in San Diego this August. I'm probably going to open up with a slide that you're seeing right now. This should be the headline news event of the 21st century. This data obtained from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reveals that since year 2000, there are 43% more Americans reaching age 100, becoming centenarians than there were in year 2000. Over a 14-year period, the study evaluated from year 2000 to year 2014, 43% more Americans reaching age 100. And the same study also showed, starting in 2008, when people started living healthier and medicine started to improve, there was a decline in the death rates of people who reached age 100. So not only were 43% more Americans living to become centenarians, they were dying at a lower rate. This should be headline news, and yet it was buried in a medical journal, published by a respected organization, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. They went through all this work to do all this data analysis, and the media just overlooked it. This was published last year in 2016. And what's happening is there's a change in the way people are perceiving what it is to be too old. Most of you remember back in 1980, Ronald Reagan was running for president. And a lot of people thought that at 69 years of age, he was too old. A lot of people thought that you couldn't run this country if you were 69 years old, and then by the time you get out of your presidency, well, you'd be 74, 75. They didn't think people that age could do it. Well, in 2016, there were quite a few people who were of that age. In fact, the average age of the people running for president, I'm going to go back on that, Doug, if you can, please. If we can just back up on that one, please. Yes, the average age of the leading presidential candidates were older than Ronald Reagan. And yet no one talked about any of them being too old. A few of them made some comments about the oldest one, and yet he seemed to be the most energetic. So we have these changing attitudes right now about how functional people can be as they grow older. And what I want to do now is go back in time, only 49 years, and I hope no one thinks 49 years is a long time when it comes to the 10,000 plus years of recorded history that exists. 49 years is a drop in a bucket. But look what happened 49 years ago, and when I was 13 years old, by the way, I remember watching this on my television set. It was a black and white television set that I had back then, but this is what I remember watching when I was 13 years of age in 1968.
I shall not seek, and I will not accept the nomination of my party for another term as your president.
Now, Lyndon Johnson was 59 years of age, and he was taken out of action by occluded coronary arteries. He suffered severe coronary artery disease. He researched his family history, and most of the men in his family didn't live much past the age of 60. He had already suffered a severe heart attack in 1955 and endured chronic angina pain. And back in his day, there wasn't a whole lot you could do about it. Right now, everyone in his congregation, if you were to suffer a severe coronary occlusion, well, they could put a stent in, they could do bypass surgery, but back in his days, that was all experimental, and there was no guarantee that you would survive something like that. And here's the second statistic that should be one of the headline news stories, at least of this year. This was published in the Journal of the American Medical Association just a couple weeks ago, and that is the leading cause of death in this country, coronary artery disease, since 1980. It's decreased 56%. Death rates from coronary artery disease down 56%. And you know what? Everyone in this room can take some credit for that, because you are all engaged in some sort of a program to reduce your risk of atherosclerosis, which remains the leading cause of disability and death, by the way, amongst human populations, including Americans. But technology has advanced since 1980 to reduce heart attack death rates due to blocked coronary arteries by an astounding 56%. This did not make it into the headline news, and yet it's something that's earth-shattering to think that technology has evolved to the point where we can attack a leading killer like this and reduce the number of people who die to this degree. This is just absolutely amazing that this is happening. And these are some of the reasons for the decrease in coronary artery disease risk, the preventative practices that we follow, healthier diets and lifestyles, and advances in medical technology. We're going to rely on all that, by the way. It's great to detoxify ourselves and take a lot of dietary supplements and eat healthy. That's going to enable us to live decades longer. We're going to need, though, advances in biomedical technology to get into those multi-hundred-year lifespans that we're all seeking. And if you look at those lists of why so few people are dying from heart attacks today compared to 1980, well, LBJ didn't have access to that. And as a result, unfortunately, he suffered. He had some problems. And this is just a timeline here of the coronary artery bypass surgery advances. And it happened relatively quick, but still a lot of people missed a boat. And if you can believe it or not, until 1876, they did not even know that coronary artery occlusion was the primary cause of heart attack. The coronary arteries, by the way, feed the heart muscle. Even though the heart is saturated with blood because it's pumping blood, the heart muscle itself requires clean coronary arteries to feed the heart muscle. But you look at that timeline and you realize, well, in 1968, when Lyndon Johnson had to resign from the re-election campaign, he didn't have access to any kind of technology that could assure him he would leave the hospital alive. Many people went in for open heart surgery, that was the term used back then, and they either died in the operating room table, in the ICU unit, or shortly after leaving the hospital. They just didn't know. It wasn't until the 1980s that technology advanced soon enough. And for Lyndon Johnson, unfortunately, he paid a price. He paid a price for the delay in technology being available. I watched this, by the way, in 1973. Maybe some of you remember it.
I'm talking to Tom Johnston, the press secretary for Lyndon Johnson, who has reported that the 36th President of the United States died this afternoon. He died of a heart attack. He had been suffering from a heart ailment for some time. He'd had two serious previous heart attacks, one as recently as a couple of months ago. He had been back at his ranch, though, and seemed to be in reasonably good health in recent weeks.
Now, here is the most powerful man in the world in 1968, having to walk away from his job because he couldn't do anything to unclog his coronary artery occlusions. And he died at the age of 64. I'm 62 years of age, by the way, and I'm nowhere near close to retiring. I'm, in fact, doing more now than I've probably ever done in my life. And that's not because of anything beyond the advances we've made in disease prevention and disease treatment. But that wasn't the case for people who lived in the 1950s, 1960s, 1970s. They did not have access to the type of technologies that we have today. And this statistic, again, a 56% decrease in coronary artery disease death rates. This is earth-shattering news, and it was published just a couple weeks ago. It should have been made a headline news story, but it didn't get that way. Now, some of the early contributions that myself and people in this congregation have made to this dramatic decline in coronary artery disease risk, well, DHEA replacement, homocysteine reduction, the use of low-dose aspirin when appropriate, coenzyme Q10, public access to blood tests. It used to be you had to go to your doctor to get your blood tested, and if he didn't want to order a test, you didn't get it. But one of the bigger factors is we defy conventional medicine. We don't let them tell us what an optimal range of glucose, LDL, blood pressure, homocysteine, fibrinogen, C-reactive protein. We do our own research. We make our own determinations as to what's best for us based on what's in the peer-reviewed published literature as opposed to what a doctor might tell you. For example, hypertension, big debate as to where optimal blood pressure readings should be. And since the founding of everything I've been involved in, the doctor said, well, when the systolic pressure reaches around 140, then we'll start to look at it in a serious way. We may prescribe some medication. We might ask you to lose some weight, come back on your sodium intake. But if you're between 120, 139, well, you're okay. Now, we argued for over 30 years that optimal blood pressure is under 120 over 80. You want it to be below that number, and our most recent recommendation is you want to be around 115 over 75 for the most part. Not everybody can get there, and not everyone can be at 115 and sustain adequate perfusion. However, the typical person, we argued, should be under 120. And the debate went on for decades, either under 140 or under 120. Just common sense, by the way, told us the lower your blood pressure, the longer you're going to live, because that means less stress on your vascular system. But the medical profession was adamant. They were so used to seeing people walking into their office with systolic pressures of 135, 140, 145. They said, well, that's normal. And it was. But who wants to be normal? Normal means you die pretty young. You die pretty young. Well, 2013, study came out that validated much of what we said. This was an analysis of the identical studies that we reviewed starting in the 1980s, 1990s, showing that people who had blood pressure below 120, they weren't having as many heart attacks and strokes. And what this study showed that if you just had what was considered normal blood pressure between 120 and 139, you had a 71% increased risk of stroke, 50% increased risk of that coronary artery disease that crippled and killed Lyndon Johnson. I don't know what his blood pressure readings were, but if his blood pressure readings were 140, 145, his doctors probably would not have known that that was creating a major problem for him. But the doctors back in 2013 were still not convinced by this analysis that blood pressure should be kept below 120. And that's because they like to see controlled interventional studies. And what I mean by that is they want to see a group of hypertensive patients, let's say a group of 1,000 people, and they want to cut the group in half. One group they treat to push their blood pressure below 140. The other group they treat more aggressively to push it below 120. What's going to happen after a period of 5 years? Well, they did this study, and it didn't last 5 years. And the reason is the people whose blood pressure was pushed below 120, they were having a 43% lower rate of cardiovascular death. And out of ethical reasons, the doctor said, well, we've got to stop the study. We need to push everyone's blood pressure below 120 because we're going to save a heck of a lot of lives. And this is an example of defying conventional reference ranges. Don't listen to what everything your doctor tells you. Do your own independent research. Pay attention to what's in the peer-reviewed published literature, and you're going to find information indicating that lowering blood pressure, lowering glucose, lowering a lot of factors in your body that are killing you is a good thing, even though it's abnormal. Because we don't care about being normal. As I said, normal people are dying at the age of around 80 nowadays, which is great historically, but we want to go way beyond that, way beyond that. So we're in a similar predicament right now as LBJ as it relates to aging. There was nothing he could have done between 1955 and 1973 that was conclusive, that he knew that was conclusive to save him. The good news is there's a heck of a lot going on when it comes to biological age reversal in human beings, And what I'm going to be discussing a lot at the Rad Fest, along with the scientists doing the studies, are 7 to 8 very promising research projects. Some of these projects, by the way, are going on today. Right now, human beings are being given medications that may enable them to reverse biological aging. And the nice thing about this is the medications are relatively safe, meaning there's a very low risk to engaging in these clinical studies. with a very high reward potential. Unfortunately for Lyndon Johnson and others in the 60s and 70s, if you chose open heart surgery, the risk of dying in the hospital was very high. And a lot of people just didn't want to take that risk. We can't blame them for that. But when it comes to age reversal, biological age reversal, we're carefully evaluating what we can do to intervene and measure the age reversal impact. Now, a lot of people have asked me, how can I participate in these studies? And the answer is very simple. I hope when I push this button, that answer is going to show up on the screen. And that answer is to log on to a website of a private association called rescueelderly.org. This is a private association. There's no formalities to it whatsoever. All we do via this website is take in information from people who want to participate in age reversal research, and then we feed it on to the different scientists who are engaged in the anti-aging age reversal research. And we disseminate a lot of information on this website. Again, there are no bylaws, there are no finances. We've had some people who wanted to donate money to rescueelderly.org, and we tell them we don't have a bank account. There's nothing here except free flow, open source information dissemination. That's all we do with this website. So if you want to donate money, maybe give it to some of the researchers or self-fund your own participation in one of these studies. But we don't take money. We give out information and we take in information. So anyone who's interested in any of the age reversal research initiatives, I urge you to log on to rescueelderly.org, enter your name, address, email, and then we actually have a menu of the different research projects that you might have an interest in, because some of them might be done in South Florida, New York, California, Bahamas. We have a number of different research locations. So that's the news that I wanted to bring out tonight, is that we do have a lot of progress occurring right now. Literally on a daily basis, I'm getting emails and phone calls from people engaged in research with human beings who are seeking to reverse their aging process. So I want to thank everyone for showing up tonight. It's been a very nice get-together.
Time for a few questions for Mr. Faloon. Any questions for Bill? Okay, Don?
Yeah, hey, Bill, how you doing? You're always talking about the glucose, because you and I have talked about this, that you said it should be 85 and under, correct?
Fasting glucose should be under 86.
Oh, well, okay, 86.
Under 86.
Under 86, because the hospitals say it should be 110 or under, and the doctors say it should be 100 or under. And you're always saying it should be 86 or under. That's because that makes us stay healthier, correct?
Much so. When we started advocating glucose control back in the early 1980s, we advocated people keep their fasting glucose under 100. The conventional medicine people said, don't worry until it gets to be 140. Millions of people died because of that medical error. The scientific literature made it very clear lower glucose conferred longer lifespan. And then as the reference ranges started to move down to 125, 110, and now 100 is what the laboratories, LabCorp and I believe Quest, they want to see a reference range below 100, which is where we were in the early 1980s. Our current protocol is 85 and lower, as you initially said, or under 86. It means the same thing. But some hospitals are still using antiquated reference ranges, and if your glucose is 109, they say you're okay. If it's 109, you may have double or triple the risk of certain vascular diseases, cancers, dementia. High glucose causes just about every degenerative disease we know of, and the lower you go, the better. People who practice severe calorie restriction, they sometimes have fasting glucoses of 72, and they're healthy. And sometimes they go down to 65 and their doctors start to worry. And we tell them, don't worry about that. That's good. Low glucose is good. Now, if it goes below 50, you might drop dead. But as long as you keep it in that very low normal range, you're going to live a lot longer.
Question from Sarah.
Well,
Happy birthday, Sarah.
I want to congratulate you for accomplishing that age. Our ambitions, though, we want to set a standard that goes way beyond 100. So please come back here when you hit 100. And we're recording this, so we're going to know you were 90, you came back over 100, and then we're going to shoot way beyond that. Okay.
Great. Question here.
Bill, with your permission, I'm going to give an answer to him concerning the blood sugar level.
Good.
It doesn't matter what the doctors tell you. Our biggest problem, the doctor's biggest problem, is that we don't know what we don't know.
And that's stated by a doctor. Thank you, doctor.
My voice is bad. I am 96 years old.
They heard you. They heard you.
I don't have diabetes.
He's 96 and does not have diabetes.
My blood pressure is low normal. My blood pressure is low normal.
His blood pressure is low normal.
And I drive my own car.
Joe drove here this evening. He wants you to know that. 96 years old, not
Congratulations.
diabetic.
Congratulations.
And we're going to see him in another decade, too. Up here.
Just real quick, did you hear about the doctors' strike in Los Angeles in the 80s?
The
doctors' strike, medical strike with the doctors in Los Angeles?
No.
It was 2 weeks long. Doctors were on strike, and the actual statistic, the death rate increased, and after the doctors came back from their strike after 2 weeks, the death rate was doubled.
Well, and that makes a lot of sense. Bear in mind, there's a term that we should all remember, iatrogenesis, and that's when a death occurs in a medical setting or as a result of a medical procedure. And there's some very good medical procedures that unfortunately kill people. Bypass surgery now is pretty good. They're down to about 2 or 3% mortality, and these are in very high-risk patients. In Lyndon Johnson's day, you had 50% of the people not making it through bypass surgery. So to be fair to the doctors, they're sometimes taking on very challenging cases, and they tell the family flat out the odds are not good. But I appreciate what you're saying.
Question here from Jerry.
In regard to that, the last figures I saw on colonoscopy, there was 74,000 deaths due to the procedure. Fewer were saved than died.
Well, I don't agree with that, but it's good that you stated it, so people can look into that themselves and evaluate for themselves. I've probably had 15 to 20 colonoscopies. I usually do it without sedation, and I'm in a room with lots and lots of people. And colon cancer kills 56, well, it used to kill 56,000 people every year, colon rectal cancer, and it's down to about 50,000 a year, and they do attribute that decline in deaths to the colonoscopy procedures. So much has to do with the skill of the individual doing it, of course, and I suspect some of those high death rates, unfortunately, were from less competent practitioners.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I did it without anesthesia. That's by avoiding the anesthesia, you reduce your risk of succumbing to an iatrogenic event. Yes.
Question here.
Yeah, what's your thoughts with regard to a virtual colonoscopy versus the old-fashioned one?
Virtual means lots of radiation dumped into your abdominal area. It has to penetrate a lot of fat and muscle tissue. So huge doses of radiation may be equivalent of 600 or more chest x-rays. And if they see a suspicious lesion, then they can go in and do a colonoscopy to see what it is and maybe take out a polyp. So I would not recommend virtual colonoscopies at all. I do recommend every 5 to 10 years people consider a colonoscopy. It's a personal decision people have to make. But I can tell you this, I've been working with cancer patients now for over 40 years, and there's nothing more frustrating than a metastatic colon cancer patients. He's got mets to his liver, his lungs, and he's laying there maybe 48 years of age, and he realizes had he had a colonoscopy, this could have been taken care of much earlier. And bear in mind, 56,000 people who used to die of colon cancer, that's a big number. In fact, that's the leading cause of cancer death when you take away cigarette smoking. You take away lung cancer, colon cancer is the number one, and you do have a way of detecting it early through a colonoscopy that can be done, again, every 5 or 10 years over the age of 40. We do say 40, by the way. The conventional people say 50. But again, we're abnormal here. We recommend people take very proactive steps. Can't wait, by the way, till cancer is cured, because what we do to try to detect it, the agonies we have to go through, it's miserable, no question about it. But if we want to stay alive and avoid short-circuiting our lifespan, we sometimes have to endure some inconveniences.
Question from another Jerry.
Hi. What carbohydrate to protein ratio do you recommend?
Very low carbohydrates as it relates to those that convert readily to glucose and boost your insulin levels. If you can avoid those almost altogether, you're probably doing yourself a huge favor. Your body does not ever need to take in a carbohydrate to maintain glucose levels. Protein is something you should balance. If you take in too much protein, you activate something in your cells called mTOR, mechanistic target of rapamycin. That creates hyperproliferation of cells, creates obesity, cancer, atherosclerosis. So you have to be very careful about eating too much protein, and at the same time you have to be careful about not eating enough protein. It's a careful, delicate balance, and we're looking at some ways to measure the effects of protein ingestion in a way that we can individualize how much protein each person should be taking.
So the question back was on the ratio?
The ratio is that individualistic, depends on what type of carbohydrates.
Yes.
If you can avoid glucose spiking, oh yeah, healthy carbs is what I'm saying. If you can avoid the glucose spiking carbohydrates, which includes, of course, the bread, the pasta, the rice. We're not talking about just sugar ones here. We're talking about the juices, all of the starches, anything that acutely spikes your glucose level is creating havoc in your arterial system.
Thank you. Question from Dave.
Recently, I had a blood workup, and my my
C-reactive protein.
Thank you. You got it right. Was 0.6. I take a lot of supplements, a lot of life extension supplements, and I sort of attribute that to it, plus a good diet and sleep and that. Is 0.6 good, or am I?
For a male, 0.6 is good. Optimal to shoot for is below 0.5. But at 0.6, you're doing great. You're doing better than 98% of the people out there. But the optimal is below 0.5.
Question from Siri.
Hello, good evening. How about coconut? Eating coconut. I deal with coconut a lot, and I eat like about 8 to 10 or 15 coconuts a day or something. So is that too much? Or?
We're getting a lot of people who are reporting favorable results with coconuts, coconut oil, coconut water. It's become very popular. I candidly have not studied it, so I can't give you an accurate answer.
That's Siri from, he's actually the king of coconuts in South Florida, and he's brought some to share with us this evening. Don?
About coconut just recently, the last week or so, that it was not good for you. I don't know if you heard about that.
A lot of data out there. If I don't know about something, I don't answer the question. So.
Okay. Another one over here, Drew. Let me come over with the microphone first so we can capture your question for the live stream.
Could you explain to us maybe again the therapy using Tagamet or metformin or baby aspirin, how somebody would do that, when to take it, and how long to take it for?
Those would be a great 3-drug combination in the adjuvant treatment of cancer. As far as cancer prevention and disease prevention, metformin dosing should be individualized. Some people can only tolerate about 500 milligrams a day. Other people can tolerate 2,000 milligrams a day. The more metformin you can tolerate, the better the effect will be. Low-dose aspirin, very good for cancer prevention and ischemic stroke prevention. Lots of benefits with low-dose aspirin. We recommend it for many people, not all, but many. Cimetidine is good for a cancer patient to take the appropriate time. If you are diagnosed with colon cancer and you take 800 milligrams of cimetidine 5 days before surgery and 1 year after surgery, you'll cut your risk of being dead from that colon cancer after 10 years by about 50%. Cimetidine is one of those drugs that's approved to treat heartburn and happens to work better against colon cancer than it does heartburn. So we have protocols, we've written about that, but cimetidine also works against other cancers. It boosts immune function, it inhibits metastatic cell adhesion to the capillary beds. Lots and lots of benefits to cimetidine as a cancer treatment, not necessarily as a prevention, but metformin and aspirin prevent cancer.
Great. Here's another question.
Well, actually, it's not a question. It's an answer on the coconut stuff. I looked at the testing, the experimentation, research, whatever you want to call it, about the bad effects of coconut and coconut oil. And the one thing they forgot to mention was the fact that the people getting the worst results were the people who had the highest amount of glucose and glucose-forming foods in their diet. So without isolating that, basically they were getting results from something else, which is a big problem in human experimentation, because if you're only looking at one factor and somebody's doing 3 other things that are detrimental, the good factor thing that you may think you're doing is getting screwed up by something else.
That's an excellent statement, and let me tell you why. Let's applaud that statement. There have been many controversial studies about homocysteine as to how dangerous it really is to have high levels, and some recent data just came out over the last year or two that people who have high omega-3 levels in their blood and they lower their homocysteine, they have dramatic reductions in dementia and certain other disease risks as long as they have high omega-3 levels in their blood. If their omega-3 levels are low, even if they lower their homocysteine, they're not getting the benefit. They're not getting the benefit. So yes, you need to do more than one thing if you're going to achieve healthy longevity. You can't just say this one thing is good for me and I can ignore everything else. Unfortunately, you can't. You need to pay attention to some of the other essentials, and omega-3s are really an essential, as is homocysteine reduction.
No, one last question from Paul.
Well, may I say 2 things about coconuts?
Sure.
Okay, first of all, little research. I get a lot of information on YouTube. The one thing about the annual death by falling coconuts has risen from 120 to 160 in the past couple of years, unfortunately. Worldwide, falling coconuts. Actual statistic, death by coconut.
Well, I just want to comment that it's very important that Siri goes and cuts down a lot of coconuts tomorrow. Going to save us some lives. Go ahead, Paul.
Secondly, in the 60s, I believe it was, we're just talking about the equator region around the world. This is a very tropical region. Of course, a lot of coconuts, a lot of tropical fruits, a lot of tropical foods. The food industry came in, and they basically put out literature about how bad coconut oil was, a couple of the other oils that these people around the equator were using on a regular basis. So for about a 10-year period, they stopped their usage, cut it way down. What happened was their diseases became very common to the typical American diseases that we had in America during that time period. It rose dramatically. It was insane. The people finally figured it out. They realized, well, this is stupid because we were healthy before, now we're not. So they went back to eating their coconuts and reversed all the diseases that they got from not eating the coconuts.
Yeah,
It's
but they
amazing.
were also adapting Western dietary patterns. That's what I think was causing that increase in death rate. And they're also, unfortunately, the cigarette companies are marketing to these third world countries. They're inducing young children to start smoking because they can't sell them in this country like they used to.
We only have time for one more question, Bill. It's Larry, so go ahead, Larry.
I know that your research is as comprehensive as anybody's, and I wanted to know what you had to say about oxygen and specifically ozone therapies.
I don't have a position on the ozone therapy. I've done it a few times. It seems to make me feel better. I think there is a virtue to hyperbaric oxygen therapy where you really oxygenate your tissues, and there's probably a lot about ozone therapy that is yet to be validated in a way that the conventional medical stream accepts it, and that's unfortunate. There really is more need for research than what the researchers get, so we wonder how effective is a certain therapy, and until someone does a good clinical trial, we don't always have the data. But my knowledge about it more so is I've done ozone a few times, I felt better doing it, and that's about the best I can tell you.
All right, Mr. Faloon, thank you. Bill, thank you very much. Always great, always great. Wow. A couple of times you've heard through the evening something about the Rad Fest. What is the Rad Fest? And, you know, I wanted to, before I go into this, mention the fact that Alex, with the permission of the speakers this evening, Rich and Michael and Bill, well, Richard and Bill, we will have the PowerPoint available on our website. So if you'd like to review what you've learned this evening, if you'd like to share it with your friends in the next maybe day or two, yes, in the next 24 to 48 hours, we'll have those PowerPoints available to be able to look at those through our website with the permission of the speakers, of course. And of course, we're we're live streaming to this evening. Right now, we're live streaming and we're recording everything. Everything's being recorded and will be immediately available after our event tonight. So if you go home, you can then turn on our YouTube channel and watch again what it was that you saw here tonight. So, the Rad Fest. What is the Rad Fest? The Rad Fest, R-A-A-D, stands for Revolution Against Aging and Death. Last year in San Diego was the largest gathering of immortalists or longevity enthusiasts, people who want to live a long, unlimited lifespan. It happened in San Diego, and this year it's happening again. You have a second chance to go to something that's phenomenal, and if you'd like to know a little bit about it, Douglas, you have a quick clip from Jim Stroll, I believe, and he's going to bring that up. And after the event tonight, if you decide that you want to sign up and go to the Rad Fest, which could be a life-changing thing for you, how many people here are signed up for the Rad Fest, going to be there and going to be part of this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So a few of you, but you know, if you have the ability, if you have the time, if you can be there, you've got to do it. It's going to be a phenomenal session this year. So go ahead, Doug. Let's see what you have there. This is a clip, just a short clip of Jim Stroll from the Rad Fest in San Diego, and he'll be talking to you here in just a moment.
Hi, I'm Jim Stroll, Director for the Coalition for Radical Life Extension. I first want to thank all of you that were at Rad Fest last year in San Diego in August, and I want to invite you back. It's important for us all to be there again together, bring our family and friends, everybody else is interested in radical life extension or just life extension, and be together and create the momentum that we want to create to impact this world. Be there at Rad Fest. We're going to do something great together. I'm excited to see you all again and meet new people. We're going to have a magnificent time. We're going to have the best of age reversal science. We're going to have fun doing it. We're going to have entertainment, parties, a celebration of life, and we're going to spread this throughout the world. I'm looking forward to seeing you there.
So, if you'd like to know more about the Rad Fest, you can talk with me after tonight. If you want to know more about cryonics, if you want to know more about reversal of aging, please join us downstairs. We have a very, very lovely feast for you. We've got a choice of poultry or fish or vegan options. We're going to have a little dinner downstairs. Join us and continue the conversation with Richard and Michael and Bill and myself. Join us downstairs, and we'll see you again next month. Thank you.
It's called Forever Young. May the good Lord be with you down every road you roam. And may sunshine and happiness surround you when you're far from home. And may you grow to be proud, dignified and true. And do unto others as you'd have done to you. in my heart you'll always stay. Forever young, forever young, forever young, forever young. May good fortune be with you, may your guiding light be strong. Build a stairway to heaven with a prince or a vagabond. And may you never love in vain. And in my heart you will remain. Forever young, forever young, forever young, forever young. Forever young. Forever young. Forever young. And when you finally fly away, I'll be hoping that I served you well. For all the wisdom of a lifetime, no one can ever tell. But whatever road you choose, I'm right behind you.